Hey, Chris Salvatore here to talk about the movie Blockbuster, not the video store that went the way of the dodo, but the blockbuster strategy of the major movie studios. For now, we're talking about the majors, which would be Universal, Paramount, Disney, 20th Century Fox, Warner Brothers, Sony, and arguably Summit slash Lionsgate. For many reasons that I will outline in this video, studios are deep into a trend of making fewer movies for more money. Production and marketing budgets are skyrocketing. Also referred to as event movies, franchises, and tent poles, these movies often share many of the same qualities. They tend to be what are called pre-sold titles, having source material such as a book or comic book or video game. If they're not already a sequel, there must be potential for sequels in success, hence the franchise moniker. They generally involve a lot of spectacle, action, effects, etc., and they're very, very expensive. Big money is spent on production, marketing, etc., and big money is expected in worldwide box office, with international box office increasingly important, and ancillary revenue, especially merchandising. In fact, box office was once the whole. You can see my video on theatrical releases for more on that, but now it's just a piece of the pie. Although the extent to which the studios are going all in with this philosophy has been building for the last few years, the idea of the blockbuster is not new. To trace it, let's go back to the movies that are credited with creating this mentality. First, some context. The 70s was the beginning of a trend which saw several movie studios, which had historically been standalone entities, owned by publicly traded corporations. And what does Wall Street want above all else? Profit. The story of the troubled production of Jaws, 300% over budget, shark not working, etc., has been well documented, so I won't go into it here. But it's what happened when it was released in June of 1975 that's relevant to this talk. It grabbed the movie audience by the throat. There were lines around the block, people seeing it 5 and 6 and 7 times. By the end of its theatrical run, Jaws had grossed $260 million in the United States, which might seem like chump change now, but adjusted to 2013, that's over $1 billion. I think it's safe to say that everyone was stunned, and studios started to see that movies could be a tremendous profit engine. That record stood until 2 years later in May of 1977 when Star Wars came out. By November, it had passed Jaws as the biggest grosser of all time, going on to make $307 million domestically. Adjusted to 2013, that's $1.4 billion. Probably more important than simply box office, however, was that Star Wars was the first film to prove the money-making potential of non-box office revenue. Probably my favorite story from the making of Star Wars, there are a lot of great stories, but this is my favorite, is that 20th Century Fox, the studio that financed and distributed the movie, let Lucas keep the merchandising rights. Because up until that time, merchandise was really only used to promote a movie, t-shirts and all kinds of things like that. It was not considered a profit center. Now that just goes to show that George Lucas is a smart boy and might explain why Disney bought Lucasfilm in 2012 for $4.06 billion. Now let's jump ahead over 40 years. The blockbuster strategy has evolved for a variety of reasons. Number one, merchandising and other revenue streams. As we could have anticipated, this market has grown exponentially over the decades. A huge tentpole movie with visual spectacle and cool characters can generate revenue streams in everything from toys to clothes to books to spin-off television shows. Studios have become experts at maximizing these streams, no company better than perhaps Disney. They bought Pixar, Lucasfilm, and Marvel in large part because of the revenue the properties could generate outside of box office. With the softening of the DVD and pay TV market in recent years, this has become an increasingly important strategy. Number two, what the bleep do people want? The entertainment business is inherently uncertain. We're always trying to figure out what people want to see. So if there are pre-sold characters or stories, comics, Marvel DC, or books, Harry Potter, Katniss Everdeen, with a core fan base that can help drive box office, the studio will jump on the opportunity. And they're better off spending more money on those titles than they are on smaller bets, many people believe. Number three, getting people to go to the movie theater. Yes, the theory is that people will always go to the theater because they generally enjoy the experience, and to a degree that's true. But nowadays there are so many other things that they can do, from video games to social media to, God forbid, waiting for the movie to come out on video. The studios want to create an experience that can only, or at least best, be captured in a theater. And how does one do that? By creating spectacle. Number four, creating foreign value. Foreign box office has been growing sizably, and the most recognizable titles are, in general, a less challenging sell overseas. Additionally, visual spectacle sells in international far better than, say, talkie dramas. Now, will it continue? Nobody really knows. There are those who say that it will, that for the studios which are owned by larger publicly traded companies, it's a sound business strategy. There are others who say that the creativity and risk-taking is being drummed out of our business. But a bubble is really only a bubble if it bursts, right? So if too many expensive movies occupy too small a time frame and people get bored and a bunch of them lose money, there might be trouble. However, that depends on the individual studio's ability to weather the storm. For instance, Disney suffered an estimated $180 million write-down on The Lone Ranger, but they'd already had tremendous success with Iron Man 3 and Monsters University, so it didn't hurt as much as it might have. Hence their purchase of these other entities like Pixar and Marvel and Lucasfilm. And you can watch my video on the major studios for more info on Disney's business strategy. There's an old Hollywood saying that the hits pay for the misses, and that seems more true than ever, although it's more of a high-wire act than ever because of the money being spent. But if a studio loses several hundred million on several pictures and doesn't have any tremendous successes, you could see some drastic changes. We'll just have to wait and see. As someone recently said to me, it's like a game of musical chairs, and someone might be left standing. In the meantime, look forward to or be critical of many sequels, prequels, and superhero movies in the next couple of years. And do some of your own predicting. See if you think the marketplace is becoming too crowded to sustain the kinds of returns that these tentpoles require. After all, people can only go see so many movies. Now, I used a few references for this video that I wanted to highlight. Box Office Mojo is a site that's used by most in Hollywood to do box office research. It's extremely helpful, and you can check out my video on interpreting box office for more information on the site. Easy Rider's Raging Bulls by Peter Biskind is a really fun read that looks at the late 60s and 70s and the rise of the auteur filmmakers such as Spielberg and Lucas. And Blockbusters is an excellent book written by Anita Elbersay, a Harvard Business School professor. It's full of interesting information and extensive research, and she's of the opinion that blockbusters across all sections of entertainment are good business and therefore will continue. I highly recommend this book for a high-level look at the business of entertainment. That's all for now. Look for more videos, and thanks for watching.